Good morning, everyone. Lovely to see you. We have another beautiful day. And I do hope that your thinking has been challenged and that you have had much to think about, but that it hasn't kept you awake all night. We have the fascinating topic this morning, the inescapable problem of humanity. And not only is it a fascinating subject, but it's an essential one that we need to know about. Because if we don't understand the problem, then we can never find the solution. So I would just welcome Michala up to talk to us about this morning.
Good morning, everyone. I promised I'd stay closer to the screen today, so we'll see if I'll succeed in that. Did you think about the questions from yesterday? You forgot it? So the questions from yesterday was, do we have a choice? Can I do the good? And the second question was, are we guilty when we do the wrong? Okay? So just keep these questions in mind and we'll try to answer them during the session this morning. I call the presentation the inescapable problem of humanity because the problem is one that we cannot get out of, and I hope you come to understand the incapacity of humanity this morning. So, if I can have this working. Oh, I forgot something. I'm sorry, I'm just going to have to fix something real quick. Ah, there we go. Then it's working. So we learned yesterday that the human being believes himself to be independent from conception, which means he believes himself to be God. Because if you have no need of anything from outside, you must be the highest being on this planet, right? And this happens immediately in the mother's womb. The physical world shows us what goes on spiritually. So we have the body of the child and the body of the mother. And we learn that there's a physical umbilical cord. We know that, if you've ever been at a birth. And we have the dependency. Mother is dependent on nature for everything she needs, food and drink and air. And she passes on the necessary nutrition to the body of the child. And the child connects himself to the mother and he takes the nutrition from mom. And then we have the spirit of the child who has a direct influence on his body. And we have the spirit of the mother who has an indirect influence since the child binds itself in trust on the mother through the spiritual umbilical cord. If you'd say so, it's invisible, so we cannot prove it's there. But we see the effect in the child. And the child takes love from the mother. So whenever the mother is taking love from the right place, or at least as long as the mother believes her needs to be fulfilled, the child will be fine. But as soon as the people that mother trusts are not as she wants them, since she's dependent on the husband and her mother and father and other people for love, the child will recognize the change in the mother's spirit and he will make himself sick. Now, the problem of humanity is now, because he believes himself to be independent, that he has no knowledge of himself. He doesn't know that he must have something from outside to sustain his function. So he has no knowledge of himself, and he has no orientation. And I put a little sentence in the slide. It says, without the orientation, without a fixed orientation, it does not matter how big a ship you have. So it doesn't matter how smart you are, for how many years you studied. It doesn't matter how much knowledge you have of the Bible, for how many years you studied it. If you have no fixed orientation, the ship will never reach the harbor. So we can be the most intelligent theologian on this earth, but without orientation, we will still be lost. So the human being has a lack of orientation. He has no fixed point, so he orients himself after himself, or other people, to satisfy his needs. He has no knowledge of himself or the basic laws that govern the universe. And he has no way to understand what is truth and what is error. And this problem is the root of all evils. It is the root of all conflict, of all war, of all disease. Anger, depression, fear, anxiety, confusion, insecurity, doubting, ignorance, loneliness, conflict, divorce, fight between the genders, domestic violence, abuse of any kind, murder, suicide, war, compulsion, backbiting, conditioning, blackmailing, all addictions, all diseases, and whatever else you can find in the world that is evil. So we learned yesterday that the function of the human being has to be according to the basic laws of nature. And it is the same with orientation. So even though the human being believes himself to be independent, the law shows us that the human being is wrong and he is deceived. And the law is that nothing can live or function from itself, and nothing can live or function for itself. Everything must work as a channel. It must take, it has a cause, it has an effect, it has an entrance, and it has an exit. It must take into the entrance, and it must give an effect in the other end. And as long as everything works in this way, according to law, it will work according to the circuit of benevolence for the greater and common good of the planet, of the universe. And this is not only the way we function, but this is the way we should orient ourselves to understand what is possible in this world and what is not possible. This law goes into every detail of everything around us. And it shows us exactly how the planet was made to work, and everything, every information that does not work according to this law is truth or falsehood. What is it? Falsehood. So, whatever information we encounter, we have only one point of orientation, and it's the laws of nature. Now we have an illustration of the laws of nature in the Bible. There's the first stone, and the first stone illustrates where to take, and the second stone illustrates where to give. And we see it explained in words. Yeah? So on the first table of stone, we have 4 commandments that are inclusive or exclusive. Exclusive. Yeah? Jesus says, he said unto him, what is written in the law? How readest thou? And the other table we have over here, the first one says, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy strength, and with all thy mind. So this is the rich young ruler, or actually it's from Luke, so it's the guy who asked about when Jesus tells the story about the Samaritan. Yeah? And he says, and the second table, it says, and thy neighbor as thyself. Yeah? Now, the fourth commandment shows us where to take, and the three others on the same table shows us to take from only that place. And on the other side, we have the inclusive. It says, give here. Anyone remember the commandment that shows us where to give? Honor your father and your mother. And why is it the commandment that shows us where to give? Our parents. It's the most difficult place to be independent, to only give. Yeah, because you are connected with your mother from conception. So to remove that dependency is a very, very difficult thing. It's so subtle, you don't know that it's there. When I heard the message the first time, I thought to myself, I don't know. I talked to the doctor for a few times before he came to Denmark. And I knew immediately when he came to do the presentations, maybe I had even listened a few times to him before he came there on the internet. And I knew immediately that I was dependent upon the doctor. That was no problem for me to see. It happens very fast. If someone has something nice to say to you, do you connect yourself immediately to that person? Yeah, it happens just when I stand up here and you are down there. And my body tells me by the nervousness that I am already dependent on you. Yeah? So I knew immediately I was dependent on the doctor. And I was writing with him a little bit, and he wrote me an email, and he said, do you know that you are dependent on your mother and your sister? And I wrote him nicely back, no, I am not sure what it means, but can I solve it without knowing it? And this is, of course, impossible. Yeah? But luckily I got smarter over the years. So we have only one place to take and only one place to give. Now, do we have a choice? Can we only take from the right place and only give to the right place? I hear a yes and a few no's. We had a very nice talk last night where we came to understand something very different than what we are taught. Now, in the Bible, we see that Moses receives the stones, and he comes down at some point with the law, and he reads the law to the congregation or to the Israelites. And what do the Israelites say? Everything you told us we will do. Were they able? No. So do we have a choice? Okay, let's see. God's challenge is that everyone in this world believes he has free will. Now, the concept of free will is that you come into the world with the inbuilt or built-in ability to choose either the good or the evil. Is that true? Can we choose the good? Okay, we still have a few that says yes, a few that says no. The idea of free will is purely imaginary. It's a fantasy. But everyone believes it. Even in the Christian church, we believe we have a choice. But in every other religion you find on this planet, we believe we have a choice. Even science tells us we have a choice. Yeah? So there is no information in this world that needs interpretation, that explains to us that we have no choice, but the law shows us that we can do nothing. Can you choose whether you are sick or not? You see, disease is the effect of the wrong idea that I am God. If you had a choice for the good or for the evil, you would never be sick. You could just think the right thing and disease would disappear. Can you do it? I tell you, whenever I have the eczema on my hand, it doesn't matter how much I think on it. I cannot think my way to remove the eczema. Not without a tool, at least. Yeah? So everyone is born into this world in prison. But he does not know that by or from conception he is bound to do the will of someone else. He believes he does what he wants, but he does not know that what he does because he is dependent on other people. And the difficulty is that we can look like we are in control on the surface. Do you see the difference between the two branches here? Do you know where it is? No, it's not so easy. There's a lot of beautiful white flower trees out there. So one of them is an apple tree. Yeah? And the other one is hawthorn. So as long as you only have flowers on the branches, will you know the difference between them? Maybe if you know the leaves. I didn't take the leaves in because I needed a good illustration. Yeah? As long as we have only the flowers there, we won't see the difference. Now we can wait a while to see what kind of fruit comes after. And then we'll recognize which tree is what. Yeah? But you can do something else that also tells you something about the branches or the root of this tree or the kind of species of this tree. Now, if you take your hand and you squeeze the apple tree, nothing much happens. But if you take your hand and you squeeze the hawthorn, not so nice, is it? Yeah. So this is a very nice illustration of the identity we carry around. It looks very pretty on the surface, but if you squeeze it a little bit, what happens to it? If someone in traffic doesn't act according to your wanting, yeah, something comes out that shows exactly the species of the tree. Yeah? Now we were on a little trip. We were on many trips. Actually, we only had 2 days, but we saw almost all of New Zealand. That's how I feel. Someone tells me that we didn't even see anything. And we went into a cave where they have these glowworms. Yeah. So they are very fascinating. And I'm learning to understand nature better, because there are so many lessons in nature telling us exactly how things work. Now the glowworms, if you see them in light, they're not so interesting, yeah. But when the darkness comes, you have this little light glooming, and I don't know, the guide says you see different. Some people see it to be one color, another sees it to be another color. I saw them to be green, and we were sailing in the boat, and I thought about this little glowworm and his purpose of life. And the guide told a very nice story. He explained why the worm glows. The worm has this color so that he attracts the insects around him. So he looks very nice on the outside. And then when he attracts the insects around him, he eats them. Now this is human nature. Do you know why you smile at other people? Because when they smile back, you live from their harmony. Is it interesting? Everything we do that looks nice, we do for ourselves. So sometimes we're squeezed and our effects come out, And disease and uncontrolled behavior show our captivity and dependency. We have depression, we have fever, we have anger, frustration, eczema, cavity, periodontitis, hopelessness, whatever it is that comes out, shows us our captivity. It's our alarm to understand that something in me must still be wrong. I must think something that makes me sick. And in the Bible we have a nice Bible verse. I forgot to correct this slide actually. I had some other things that had to come up first. But here we see the poverty, the poor in spirit, the blind, the brokenhearted, the captives, the bruised. And Jesus says in Luke 4, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he hath anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance unto the captives, and recovering of sight to the blind, to set at liberty them that are bruised, to preach the acceptable year of the Lord." Now, if you are poor, can you choose to be rich? If you are blind, can you choose to see? So the question is, did Jesus come here to save us from an action? Or did he come here to save us from a state of being, a state of mind? Yeah? Can we choose the good? If you are in the truth, you believe yourself to be God's child. You are connected only to the Creator, and you do not eat from those around you. How much evil can you do? You cannot choose the evil. But what about Adam? We'll get back to him. If you believe the lie, "I am God," you are separated from God from conception. Because, do you remember the parable with the water well yesterday? With the women coming and drawing for water? Yeah? Now, if you are the well of water, will you ever look for another well of water? No? So you would never search out to look for God. We think so as Christians because we don't know our problems, so we think we're searching out to take from the right place. But subconsciously, we eat from other people. And how much good can you do when the people around you or the pets you have, they fail you? You will give according to what you took. And as the one who gave you disharmony, all you can do is disharmony. You cannot choose the good. I put the pets here because I have a nice story of a lady. I saw her just a week before we left for Australia. And she came with a pain on her right side in her tooth. And she'd been there recently, some months before, with another tooth, same side. And we repaired a filling because I thought, oh, maybe we can take care of the symptoms a little bit. And she came now with another tooth. It was not very painful, just a little bit. And nothing was wrong. I couldn't see any cavities. I couldn't measure any pockets in the gums, and it all looked nice. There was nothing to see on the x-ray. And you know, when you're exhausted with things, then some people you sense they are more open to talk about their inner life. Usually women are more open than men. And so I put the question, have you been stressed? And how do you think she reacted? Immediately the tears started streaming down her cheeks. Yeah? And she explained to me that just a short time ago she lost her pet. Yeah? And some months ago, the doctors thought she had a serious disease, and they were investigating. And in the process, she got so nervous that she lost her nails. You see, this is how much our mind has an influence upon our body. So, if you have this nature, you can do nothing good. When you are disconnected from the source of love and life, how much power, how much electrical current in your nerves do you have to choose the good? Nothing. It's impossible. And we see it in our Bible. It says, "Do men gather grapes of thorns or figs of the thistles? You'll never go to this plant expecting to find fruit. And you will never go and eat the thistles, thinking they will taste like figs." It's an impossibility. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, and neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. It does not happen in nature, because by law it is impossible. No change or no choice to change the fruits. Now here we have a small little guy with a spiritual dependency that begins at conception and continues after his birth. When he breathes or eats and sleeps, he does so for himself, in selfishness. He cries for himself to get what he wants. He laughs and smiles for himself to make other people smile at him so he can live from them. He does everything he does for himself. Does he have a choice? Does he still have a responsibility? Yes. Now this little guy is so little that he cannot reason yet. So you cannot talk to him about responsibility at this age. But as he grows, he will learn from his mother about his responsibility, if his mother is well educated. Now this is my life. From conception. We start on the bottom. Maybe some of you have a bigger tree because you live longer than me. And maybe some of you have a smaller tree. At the root of my life is the deception that I am God. And so all the branches and leaves up here are my thoughts and actions. And since I have only this root, they must all be wrong. Now, how many thoughts and actions do you think are approximately in this picture? Countless. All of them. All of them is nice, yeah. Countless. So, what we do is we try to cut off the leaves. Is that smart? What happens when you cut off the leaves or the branches of a tree? Yes, and how do they grow back? They get more. If you cut even here, above the ground, what will be the results? More will spring up. Yeah? But this is our religion. This is how we deal with our wrong acts. And it's not only religion. Everyone wants to look nice on the outside. Now, what is the problem with the people that get really good at cutting? Do you know what will happen to them if they're really strong and they're good at cutting? They will look nice. They will look very nice on the outside. I read something this morning from my favorite author, or one of them. And it says, among those to whom bitter disappointment will come at the end, the final reckoning, it will be some who have been outwardly religious and who apparently have lived Christian lives. But self is woven into all they do. They pride themselves on their morality, their influence, and their ability to stand in a higher position than others, and think their knowledge of the truth. Oh, and their knowledge of the truth, because they think that these will win for them the commendation of Christ. Lord, they plead, we have eaten and drunk in thy presence, and thou hast taught in our streets. Have we not prophesied in thy name? And in thy name have we cast out devils? And in thy name done many wonderful works. And what will happen to them? Depart from me, I do not know you. So we can become very good at cutting off the leaves and maybe even the branches of the tree. But by doing that, we are not helping ourselves. Instead, we should embrace the branches and the leaves and take it as a message that something must be fixed down here. Okay? So, can we then choose our dependency? Can I take myself out of dependency down here and move up here? If you are the water wheel, if you think you are the water wheel, can you ever connect to another water wheel? No. There is no choice for dependency. So this separation is not a changeable separation. It is a final separation. And it makes me able to give, but I believe I give from myself, and I give only for one reason, which is to receive. So how do we know that there is no choice for changing dependency? You see, when we look to Adam, who was made into this world with a holy nature, a nature that was only dependent on God, understanding that I am a child of God, we see a change of dependency. But I just told you that the change of dependency is impossible, because by law, you cannot change your dependency. Now, how then did the fall of man happen? And not so long ago, I was in the US in the fall, and I traveled with my very good friend, or I met my very good friend Margaret there. And Margaret and I shared a room with two other wonderful ladies, and she had brought an adapter to put into the outlet, the power outlet. And she kept trying, she's a very persistent lady like myself, and she kept trying to push this adapter into the wall, and she just couldn't make it fit. And in the end, she gave up, and she chose another adapter. We had one she could borrow, and she borrowed our charger for the phone. Now, the issue for Adam is that he was born with only one way of fitting into the power plug. Let's say he has the New Zealand power plug, and God has the New Zealand power outlet. And it would be impossible for Adam to fit into any other power outlet. Adam was made to only fit into one kind of power outlet. But inexplainably, and this is the mystery of sin, he pulled himself out, and he took the Danish power outlet and pushed himself into this. Now, what happens to the power plug when you do that? It's broken. So, this is how your power plug now looks like. Because the only thing you can inherit in this world is the power plug of Adam. Now, can you take a power plug like that and put it back into the New Zealand power plug or power outlet? I think this is the American one, actually. No, it's absolutely damaged. It can never be put back into the right power outlet. There is no choice for dependency. Now we have the issue then with the tree in the garden. But we forget that in the garden evil already existed. The tree was there for protection and for limiting the possibility of the evil entering into this world. So the devil had already fallen. He now has an influence on the planet. And God said, that's all right, but I keep you here in this tree. So Adam and Eve could go anywhere in the garden, endangered, if they just stayed away from that one place. They did not know the law. It was not a conscious thing for them that everything works by law, because they were just made like that. So God explained to them the dependency. He explained to them how they function. And then he also put the tree to limit the influence. God did everything in his power to avoid the evil entering this universe. He told them, if you eat, if you disconnect from me, you will die. Now, humanity does not have a built-in need for dying, but he has a built-in need for living, so it would never make sense that he would go to die. It would never make sense that he would choose to take from the tree, knowing that I'm going to die, but I eat it anyway. Independent of God, the human being cannot fulfill his purpose or live altogether. It is impossible. So dependency was never a choice. This is why Adam had to deceive himself inexplainably to be able to violate the power plug out of one outlet and violate it into another outlet. Now sometimes we get in trouble because we read the Bible and we read some things that we think sounds like we have a choice. But I just go over a few texts and ask you, what do you think about these texts? I know that in me, that is in my flesh, dwelleth no good thing, for to will is present with me, but how to perform that which is good I find not. For the good that I would do, I do not, but the evil which I would not, that I do. Now, if I do that I would not, it is no more I that do it, but sin that dwelleth in me. Sin that dwelleth in me, what is it? The wrong identity. Yeah. I find then a law that when I would do good, evil is present with me. For I delight in the law of God after the inward man. We all would like to do the good. Yeah? We want to do the good. But I see another law in my members, warring against the law of my mind and bringing me into captivity to the law of sin, which is in my members. O wretched man that I am, who shall deliver me from the body of this death? Does it sound like free will to you? Isn't it interesting that something like free will has been believed for so long that we all walk around thinking we have a choice? I'm astonished to see it. And it's so difficult to argue with the human being, even when he breaks out in anger. He will still think he has a choice. But if you think you have a choice and you keep doing the evil, what will come next? Self-condemnation. And how far will self-condemnation drive you? To suicide. The teachings we have in religion about free will kill the people we let into the church. I find it very serious. God speaks to its people in Jeremiah 13:23. Can the Ethiopian change his skin or the leopard his spots? Then may ye also do good that are accustomed to do evil. Does it sound like free choice? No. Paul to the Hebrews. For if we sin willfully, after that we have received the knowledge of the truth, there remaineth no sacrifice for sins, but a certain fearful looking for of judgment and fiery indignation, which shall devour the adversaries. You see, the people that believes we sin by choice must also believe that if they sin by choice, there's no salvation. But sometimes we read parts of the Bible and parts of other writings, and we make up a doctrine without taking everything into consideration. And why do we do this? Because we have no standard to tell us what is right and wrong. See, we have texts in the Bible that seem to say one thing, and then we have texts that seem, according to our subjective interpretation, to say another thing. And those texts may seem to contradict each other because we do not look to the Bible with a measurement. But if we have a foreknowledge of law and the nature of man when we come to the Bible for interpretation, we will see that all these texts will not contradict each other, but they will supply each other. But we are so accustomed to reading the Bible with the glasses of sinful nature that we do not know what is right and what is wrong. And it makes it impossible for us to understand what the Bible says. So, do we sin on purpose? If Adam chose to sin because he wanted the evil, then why would God try to save him? It would be God's forcing to put the good on a creature that chose the evil. God could never save anyone who wants the evil. But Adam wanted the good, but he deceived himself. So something looked very attractive to him. Just like the glowing worm. He thought it was good, and when he came near to it, it deceived him. Yes. He did. He did not have a choice. He had to deceive himself first. As I said, he was made to only be put into one block. So by creation, he had no choice. But inexplainably, it happened anyway. God created Eve, yes, but not... Yes. 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 And this is the mystery of sin. We cannot explain it. Yeah. He connected himself to Eve. He thought he could save her. And it's inexplainable because he knew that if I eat, I die. But he deceived himself and he thought maybe I can save her on my own. Yeah? Now, of course, Adam had another nature than us. So you cannot defend that he changed because it cannot be explained. He had no choice to change, but he did. But just for one moment, put yourself in the shoes of Adam and think to yourself, my wife ate of the tree and she will be now eternally lost.
And you like your wife.
And of course you have to like your wife, but let's just assume that. Well, the thing is, if Adam had wanted the evil for the sake of evil, then God's plan of salvation would be force. You know, there would be no reason for God to try and turn Adam around, because he had deliberately chosen the evil. So to do anything about it would just be a waste of energy or power. But because Adam had no intentions of evil, he wanted the good, but he did so in deception. He deceived himself. Now, it's like he came near a pit and he recognized that somewhere there's a pit, but he didn't recognize where, and he stumbled right into it, and now God wants to put him up or to pull him out. Yeah? But if he had walked into that pit deliberately wanting to die, then God has to let him die, because God respects the self-government of the human being. Yeah? So he had to deceive himself. We have the example with Lucifer. Lucifer also deceived himself, and God came to warn him. And Lucifer saw the deception. He saw the evil, and he chose to stay in evil. Yeah? So Lucifer got a choice and refused to get out of deception. Adam did not want the evil for the sake of evil. We cannot explain even Lucifer's fall, because why would anyone want to stay in deception and die? It makes no sense. So there we have the start of the mystery of sin. But the mystery of sin entering into the universe we live in here is that Adam disconnected from God, plugging into something that he was never made to fit into. He was not made with a choice for the evil. But inexplainably, he takes himself out of the power outlet and he forces himself into another. There's barely a power outlet. Yeah. So
the deception was possible not because of God, but
no, the deception was not possible. You
Eve
see,
had eaten
deception.
an apple and she hadn't died, so she was still alive
Yeah.
in front of him. So maybe he then doubted, maybe God doesn't mean.
Yeah, but that's not. You see, God keeps Eve alive, but not for the sake of deception. God keeps Eve alive because he would like a time of probation. Yeah? So this is a part of the plan of salvation, and it is not evil. But of course, our sinful nature takes everything, like the tree in the garden, and puts it into evil. But let's just ask a few questions. So, because sometimes our mind makes things very complicated when they're really very simple. Now, a few questions to ask ourselves is, can God do the evil when his character is love? No? So does God not have a choice? You see, we confuse ourselves very easily. God can never choose the evil. Yeah? If he cannot do the evil, does he then have a free will? He doesn't need a free will. Yeah? God only needs to do the good. Can he choose what good to do? Yes, he can choose what good to do. You could call that free will. But the idea that free will is to be able to choose the good and be able to choose the evil, it's man-made. It was never there. Now the attempt, because this is what Adam and Eve, they did, the attempt to go from being a creature to being God, is it possible? No, but they did it anyway. Now, of course, this is only a change that happens in the mind of man, because you cannot go from being a creature to being God, and you cannot go from being God to being a creature, but they tried it anyway. So the possibility to do the evil wasn't there, but they attempted anyway. And this is why it cannot be explained, because it was impossible. If it was possible, it would not be a mystery anymore. Jesus did not change from being a God to being a creature, but his divinity was clothed in humanity. So he was still God and he was still man. Yeah. But we will come to that in the next seminar. Now, everyone and everything is created and to function according to the basic law of life. If God then created Lucifer or any other being with the built-in capacity to choose the evil, then evil must have existed before Lucifer. If evil existed, the thought of evil existed before Lucifer, then who would have to be the origin of evil? You see where the doctrine of free will lead us? It would put God to be the devil himself. Exactly. And so because it originated with Satan, it can never be a choice. You were not made with the capacity to choose between the evil and the good, and neither was Adam. Now, can we then not make decisions? Because this is the objection that comes, can I not choose anything in this world? And this is the spirit of man. We know that he was created for self-government, so no one can think or act for him. It means that he cannot be controlled from the outside, he must control himself. And that includes decisions and actions. Therefore, he is the only one responsible for his decisions and actions. But that he does not have a choice about those decisions and actions means that he is bound to think and act according to his innate identity or nature. So whatever he does according either to the idea that I am God or to the idea that I am a child of God. And he has no choice. So he can make decisions and he can do actions, but he has no choice for the motivation of those decisions and actions. And the problem with the idea that I am God is that you can control yourself to a certain extent, depending on how the situation around you, how much pressure have you been through in your life, because this is what the sinful nature experiences. He believes the outside is the problem. And if that outside problem grows great enough and it does not fulfill your needs, then you cannot anymore control yourself. And this is, of course, some people are more sensitive, and therefore some people see their dysfunction and their inability to control themselves more easily than people that are very strong and good at cutting off the leaves. But we all have the same root. It just does not show so easily in the proud Pharisee as it does in the alcoholic. But who has the greater advantage? The alcoholic. Is that how we look to humanity today? We think the alcoholic has the greatest advantage? No. There was a reason that Jesus could reach the sinners and the, what you would call them, tax collectors, and because they saw they didn't have a choice. They were stuck with no way out, and here is someone who's talking about a possibility to get out. But if you don't come, first you must come to understand the theory or the doctrine that you have no choice. But even if you understand the doctrine and you do not come to understand by experience that you have no choice, if you will not see, if you don't come to the realization that everything I ever did, I did for myself, you will never look for the solution. You will never look for a way out. Because you will think you can keep cutting off the leaves. Exactly. Exactly. And at some point he realized everything I ever did. He writes to the Romans, he says they have the seal for good. But the seal doesn't help them because it's an outward seal. Okay. So we have the evaluation of information and decision making. This is the spirit of man. And this is the information we encounter outside. And here we have the source of information. And down here we have the body, the 2 brain cortexes. And this is the entrance. And in the accent we have what we call the will. Maybe some of you heard the phrase, the power of the will is what we need to know. And the power of the will help you how much if you have the wrong identity? Nothing. So it's good to have a power of the will. This is inbuilt. But that will must work according to the entrance. So we have the understanding that the spirit is dependent on means to fulfill his needs for function. And those means are information, it's love, harmony, righteousness, liberty, and so on. He is self-governed, and no one can evaluate, interpret, accept or reject information for him but himself. Not even the Holy Spirit. He has a yes and a no. He has a yes for the gain, for the fulfilling of needs. And he has a no for the loss, for the not fulfilling his needs. And when he makes a decision in the will, he has feelings, actions, and bodily reactions according to that decision. We have the slide a little bit down, but I hope you can still see what's going on. Now, to do this evaluation, he must bind to the source of information that he takes the information from. And this is what we call trust. So he binds himself to the source of information, and then he has an intake of information, and this we call faith. I believe the information coming from the source that I trust. If the spirit should accept the information coming from outside, he must believe it to be true. Eve could have never eaten from the tree unless she had believed the information coming from the serpent to be the truth. So the serpent had to make something that was evil, he had to make it look very nice, like the glowworm. Something that will devour you and take your life away, he had to make it look like it was very palatable. The information must meet the needs of the spirit. I have a boss at home, and she has a great need to know everything about everything that has to do with dentistry. Now, I have a smaller capacity than her, and so I only look for information that when I encounter a problem that I cannot solve. She would like that I was better at looking for information, but since I'm very simple-minded and the small capacity, I never look for anything except I meet a problem I cannot do anything about. And see, this is also why it takes long for God to help the human being, because the human being will only search for the solution when he is in such deep trouble that he is almost drowning. Yeah? So we will never look or take in information that we do not believe we need. And the spirit must also perceive that the information is necessary to fulfill, that it is necessary to fulfill the purpose. Yeah? And the entrance up here is the subconscious. Who am I? Now, according to the truth, this is the scale, our analyzation of information. And here we have a standard. So when we bring in information, we first put it against the standard that we carry. Now, the standard, must it be inside or outside? It has to be outside of you. Something that cannot change. Yeah? So what happens when we think the standard must be an inside? We become the standard ourselves. Yeah? So the standard must be something unchangeable that we cannot wrestle with and make it different in our mind. And as I believe I am the child of God, the standard will be the law. Yeah? Then I will bind in trust to the source of information. And then I start living from that source of information. And I will take in the information. And the information over here must be put on the scale so that I will understand the information correctly. So I have the need of two kinds of informations. I must have the self-evident information that never changes. And then up here I have information put in words, and do words change over time? Does the understanding of those words also change over time? Yes. So down here I must have something unchangeable that does not shake, so that I will understand the information and be able to take it out, to draw it out of the words that I read and understand it correctly. Because everything was made to be interpreted by the unchangeable. So if you have the unchangeable, you will understand the information up here correctly. But if you have no unchangeable standard, you will not come to understand the scriptures. Okay? And now, by faith, I take in the information that God provided us with. And as long as I am connected in trust, I believe I'm only a child, I don't own anything or anyone, I cannot create anything. As long as I live by that standard and understand all information by that standard, I will be secure from loss. I cannot be hurt by anyone, I cannot lose anyone, and I cannot misunderstand the Bible. Sounds nice? I think it's very nice. Now the issue is, of course, and here, of course, we have the correct electricity. When we are in the truth, we always make the right decisions. We always have loving actions, and we have health. Because everything we believe, we must put into action. You cannot have one wrong belief that will not be put into action. So we'd like to be here, because then we will be happy and healthy. But what happened is, of course, the sad thing of the innate nature of man. Now, this is the scale I have, where my information is being measured, and the standard I put when I believe myself to be God must be what? Myself. Is that a bit shaky? Yes, very shaky. Now I bind in trust to the source of information, but since I believe myself to be the will of love, I cannot trust the true will of love. I bind to humans, and in the end, I bind myself to the devil, since he would like for me to be dependent on something else, anything else than God. And I depend and live from the information of other people. That means that anything they say, I must trust it. I take it in. We had a nice talk during the week about not taking it. I understood that apparently in English it's like, I will not take it, you know? It's like a type of revenge. It's fine, you can say what you want, but I'm not going to take it. But it's not a very friendly way of not taking things. So what we want to come to understand is that the people around us can say anything they want, but I will not take it personally. Because whatever they do not do it to me. Is it nice? People can say whatever they want about me because they're talking about someone else. It doesn't have anything to do with me. It would be such a relief. Okay, now the human being still has a yes and a no. But he has a yes for what looks like gain, and a no for that which looks like loss. But his thoughts of gain and loss has been put upside down. Do you remember anything in the Bible about it? Paul says, that which I used to consider gain, I now consider loss. Isn't it nice? Now I have wrong beliefs, uncontrolled behavior, and disease, and I am stuck. So how did this happen? We have the planet was made. This is Adam, and God made him to be dependent on him alone, and Eve to be dependent on God alone. And now he separates himself from God through the deception, and he does not anymore know who he is. And it's a little bit hard to see, but the color of the eye down here is changing. And the only life I can inherit out here is the dead life of Adam. Now this life must come to an end because it is not connected to the source of life. And it must take from somewhere, and since it cannot take from the Creator, it must take from people around him. But the issue is that the problem can only be solved from inside. The heart of man, and inside is a great big wall of lie that I am God. But God cannot reach the human being because he made him with self-government. So God has no access to him. How do we solve that problem? There is no solution. By no choice, every human being is brought into this world, since no one can choose to not be born. So we are all here, and no one asked us if we would like to be. Everyone on this earth inherits the dead life of Adam by no choice, because you cannot choose your parents. Good can come from this life, only evil, and man is now bound to live and die in slavery by no choice. The life of Adam cannot be saved. It is eternally lost. And this is the inescapable problem of humanity. And he doesn't know about it. Now, the good part is that God made a solution above law, and we will try to look into this in the next lesson, but I think we will just have a small break first.